Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John, and welcome back to The Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive critical eye.
That's right. And to avoid lazy negativity, we have decided to make this a drinking game. Anytime you hear that sound, that definitely means that we're drinking. Yeah,
that sound.
That
thought
means
you'd
that
get
we
past
are,
it, didn't you? No.
That means that we are drinking people, and we hope you drink along with us.
So pour yourselves a glass, and we're going to Horror Town.
Go to Horror
Oh,
Town,
boy.
people. We have some new,
Sort of.
but we have a new release and one definitely not new release that we're doing this week on a separate pod, which we're going to tell you about after John gets us through some shout outs.
Some shout outs. As always, we want to give it up for our beer sponsor, Carlos Barroso. His handle on Instagram is Cbarroso Bar 2019. That is CBARROZOBAR 2019. And if you're digging the music on this episode, and every single episode is provided by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein, Dasein. You can head on over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist, and you can download all that music for free. So go and hit it up. Please like, love, rate, review, everything you can. We're on all platforms at The Love of Cinema Pod. No, excuse me, just at The Love of Cinema, right? And on Twitter, we're at The Love of Cinema Pod. I know it's a little confusing, but just give it up for us. We would really appreciate it. We will get back to you. We love you.
Apparently, the more letters you have in your name, the closer you can get to getting that little check mark.
Yeah,
Just
that's what
that
we're
little
going for.
fucking check mark.
We get paid by the letter. All right, people. We are going to be talking about The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which just came out. But let's go ahead and hype up at the end of this episode. We're going to tell you what you've been watching. So if you're curious as to what your beer-loving movie fan podcast hosts here are watching, stick to the end of the episode. And week episode, which we're going to release soon, we are going to be doing, as part of our Should Have Seen That By Now segment and series, we are going to be doing Psycho, which John...
Never heard of it.
For some reason, John has never seen
incredible.
this movie, and I know
I'm drinking, baby. Ashamed.
So for friends and fans and new and old followers of our show, we all used to live together. We were roommates, and I definitely would come home and watch John watching North by Northwest and watching other Hitchcock movies.
Weird thing. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. I just don't know how it's never happened, but it's never happened.
I'm very, very curious to hear what you have to say about that, John. After seeing it for the first time, and then Dave, I'm sure it's not your first time. That's what she said. Okay, so we're gonna do that in our midweek episode.
You're not getting away with those.
But today, we're going to get right into our featured segment, which is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which just came out in theaters.
That's what she said.
And that's what she said. Oh my God, The Office, people. Okay, so The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, which is out right now in theaters, if you're listening to this in the near future, I hope. And it's also available on HBOMax as part of the whole Warner... Let's make sure none of our filmmakers make as much money as they could have deal that they signed last year in 2020. This is, I think I saw the 5th entry into the Conjuring universe. A little hazy, but it's The Conjuring 3, and then there's 2 Annabelle movies. I thought I saw some other ones in there. You guys can.
I'm fairly certain that the entire universe is. I think the entire universe is streaming on HBO Max right now as well. They have their own universe little tag set up if you want to just go watch all these motherfuckers.
Oh, you know what I think it is? Wait, hold on. God damn it, I should have done my research, right? I'm pretty sure this is the 5th Conjuring movie if you count the Annabelles, which is still in this world. But then there's also like The Nun and other horror movies that are in the universe. So you have the series and the universe separately. Yes. Marvel and Star Wars are like, hey guys.
I mean, it's there's an image of the nun in this movie.
Yeah.
Twice.
Oh, yeah.
And Annabelle, right? Yeah.
Annabelle, yeah. The Easter eggs are floating left, right, and center.
And horror movies are so rewatchable that I'm sure that's part of the gag, is that you get to you get to follow these things. And this is Ed Warren and Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren, who are real life supernatural investigators, because Vera Farmiga's character, Lorraine Warren, who just passed away in 2019, she had psychic abilities. And in the, I want to say 60s, 70s, this movie is set in 1981, and it's based on apparently a famous murder series where what is believed to be, wisdom now, is that a man named Arnie Cheyenne, that's his middle name, a man named Arnie, killed his landlord in real life and claims that it wasn't him, that he was demonically possessed, or a voice made him do it. Or, title, the devil made him do it. So as always with these Conjuring from Insidious, is that these are somewhat based on a true story, which gives it that little extra element, that little appeal. This is the first Conjuring movie, if you count this as Conjuring 3, to not be directed by James Wan. And the premise is the Warrens, Patrick Wilson, investigate a murder that may be linked to a demonic possession, which I think I already gave away. So why don't we go around before we get into this like initial reactions, as opposed to those reviews you read online with those stuffy critics who go right to the negative. What was your gut feeling? What did you guys feel after watching this?
Dave, come at me, dude. Are you also, you're a James Wan fan too, right? I think you and I both enjoy him a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I famously admitted that the first Conjuring film, I almost crapped my pants when they finally got to like one of the reveals, and so like, and I had to stop it and wait to I stopped, literally, I'm not kidding, I stopped the fucking movie and waited till the next day till it was daylight to watch the rest of this thing. I'm like, I'm out, peace out, everyone. Thank God I wasn't in the cinema. This one, not as, I want to say, terrifyingly punchy as they used to. They kind of settled, like, and I guess because this one is, I mean, they're all based on their case files, but this one is based more in, a little bit more in reality, I guess. And the like, they don't rely as much on the terror. So the terror is, the terror of this is that it was, it's pretty close to what actually happened.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
I feel like they pull back, and also like there's a lot of story in this. There's a lot more story than you'd normally get in one of these films. Yeah,
and I didn't mind that at all. I like these movies. I like this universe. I like what James Wan did with the first two. I liked Insidious. So I was just curious to see what it was going to feel like in the hands of someone else. And I think you're exactly right. That's basically what I was going to say. It didn't feel, it's not that James Wan's movies don't have drama in them. It's just the tone of his directing style usually feels more, he's more mindful of creating tension and suspense with the camera and the way he sets up sequences. This felt more like a drama. It felt more like it was about their relationships, about the story, the relationships between Arnie and what was happening with him, his family members, his girlfriend, who I guess maybe his fiance, I can't remember if they were engaged or not, and also Lorraine and Patrick Wilson's character, Ed.
Yeah.
So I felt like, and more story. I totally agree. And it didn't bother me. I actually ended up, it felt more like a mystery to me, which I kind of enjoyed. I enjoyed watching it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost like an X-Files episode, but you kind of might need some depends.
Yeah, they're still scared.
I mean, the opening scene, like even the opening music says, like, hints that you're about to get fucked up. Like it just comes at you, and it like that doesn't hint what the rest of the movie's like. I feel like this is a great entry level if you're not into horror movies. This is kind of the midway. Like this will ease you into the Conjuring universe. More than anything else, so it's probably worth watching if you're not a big horror movie fan, because it still is a very good story, and I feel like that's what they went for here. But also that opening scene, holy crap!
Yeah, totally enjoyable. Really
and then they play the recording at the end.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
That's the actual recording.
Touch.
Yeah,
they do that. They do that in these Conjuring films when you stick through the end, and they don't show you, and sometimes with these based on a true story things at the end, it's like, see, we did a good movie, right? That's kind of what I feel like when I see some of those. There's one in my head where I was like, that is better than the movie I just saw. Fuck you. But in this case, I was like, fuck, that's awesome. Like, thank God, like that they showed that at the end. They should just the pictures, but then once you hear the recording, whenever you hear it, because it's an exorcism, whenever you hear an exorcism recording, if that's real. Which, I'm only saying if because I'm hoping that it's not real, even though it probably is, because we've heard a bunch of those. But holy crap, man, I'm like, that is not a human voice. My gut reaction was strong. It came in hot, like right away. Yeah. There's almost a cold open, which kind of does give it that X-Files feel, Dave. I think you nailed it with that. It opens hot, and then it like kind of unravels, and it goes, okay, So that's what this is. That the bones? Is that the meat of this movie? Like, what is that for? Because then all of a sudden it's like The Conjuring, the devil made me do it. After you just saw this wild exorcism happen, you're like, holy shit! And of course you're like, is this family ever going to give up? Because their job is way too dangerous.
Which I should point out, most of that was practically done. There's only one visual effect in it. All the contortionism was a 12-year-old contortionist.
A 12-year-old contortionist? Yes. They got China in the Olympics?
He's already drinking. I haven't even hit the buzzer. But no, they got this 12-year-old girl in to do the actual contortions that happened during the exorcism, and then they CG'd the young actor's face onto her. My God. Yeah, so a lot of that was done practically.
That Chinese dance experience.
Yeah,
Shin Yun. You see posters for it everywhere. Dude, that's incredible. Yeah. I would never have guessed that was practical.
There's so much that like in these movies they like to do as much as they can practically, because it like
which I appreciate. Let's just talk about
in a horror film. Practical sells better than CG.
I agree. Yeah.
I think that mindset too is evident in all of these movies, and I'm not sure if I should have done more research. I'm not sure if there is a producer who's involved in all of these, but the Insidious, these Conjurings, even the Sinisters, like there's an approach to them that is very different from like we did the Halloween movies, you guys, and it's very different from like 80s and 90s slasher films where there's kind of a tongue in your cheek a little bit when you're making something like that. It's not quite as grounded. All the acting and all of the filmmaking is so sincere in all of these movies that it's just refreshing, because sometimes you sit down and we're always looking for the scare. I'm not saying those older movies don't give you some good scares too, but there's a different element of drama in this whole universe. And I think you got to give it up for everyone who's involved, but I could not stop thinking, it always amazes me every time I watch these movies, Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are good actors.
Yes.
Good actors, and they're really giving it all they can. And I think something that is a very important ingredient to that older style of horror movie is not great acting. I'm not going to say it's bad acting, but it's a very different cheesy style. They usually use no names, unknown actors. So this is always just like, you feel like you're sitting down and you automatically raise your expectations. Kind of like when we talk about the movie in the midweek, whenever Hitchcock would make a film, he used to work with the biggest names of the day. And I know that maybe Patrick and Vera aren't household names, but they're really excellent. And they cast excellent actors around them who you've never heard of, perhaps. And I don't know. So just in light of what you just said, the practical aspect, casting really well, taking it seriously, also, it elevates these movies.
Also the writing, like I know it's based on a true story, but I really like the vulnerability that they added to the leads this time around. Like he almost doesn't make it through the beginning of the film, and that affects him for the rest of the film. And like it's a little bit of a plot element I get, but it also, I really like that the exorcist, like the paranormal investigators in this aren't superheroes. They're not wandering through this thing invulnerable to what's going on. Like they are in fucking danger.
Yeah.
He plays it really well. He's really good at that. And if he's not a household name, he probably should be, because 2 Insidiouses and then 3 Conjurings. Like, God, this guy's a machine. But I really believed him. There was like, his heart became my heart a couple times, where he was like, I was like, I don't know if he shouldn't be running after. He should be running down the woods
Jeff's
right
reaching
now. And
for
I'm
his
standing
pills, just watching the movie.
And then of course, there's like little things like you can forgive the fact that like this guy who just had a heart attack is outrunning the cop. Like maybe.
Yeah, I was just about to say, can we give that cop? Can you buzz that cop? How the fuck did Patrick Wilson?
Patrick Wilson had a heart attack, and that cop is like huffing and puffing when he finally gets to the cliff's edge, and he's like, "Oh, what did I miss?" And he's like, "What? What's your excuse?"
I just say adrenaline's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the performances. I will say some of the supporting characters and dialogue can suffer in some of these movies, and I think this might have teetered into that land a little bit, where this clearly is it's the Warrens movie, it's the Warren story, but we need to get some of that subtext into there. So it's like, oh, we have a cool couple, and then there's one person who gets possessed in the couple, and he does a really good job, and then maybe the significant other was written a little thin, but I don't think the actor who played that part filled it out, to be honest with you.
I mean,
I do agree with you. You're talking about at the beginning when there were some lines she had at the beginning that just felt like they were in a different movie.
But they were like movie lines. It's like, what, you want to move? With what money? And it's like, okay, I've seen this a million times. Yeah.
Okay. I do love that sometimes they didn't also they didn't spell it out. Like the one section where they're like, who's his lawyer? And they go to see his lawyer, and she's like, this is not winnable. Like, we can't do this. You want me to base this on this crap? And he's like, come over to our house. We'll introduce you to Annabelle.
Yeah.
And the look on her face in the next shot, like literally it cuts to the courtroom. The look on her face just tells you exactly what she's just fucking
like, yep,
seen.
there was demonic possession in this case.
Yeah, this shit is real.
And obviously, that's the kind of fun you can have in a franchise.
Yeah.
Right? Like we all knew, like we were all like, oh yeah. Like
So,
I remember,
as soon as he drops, I'll introduce you to Annabelle. You're like, oh shit.
Isn't that a perfect example? Like, even though I think directing wise, I just thought that was so well done, and editing and everything, because the cut was humorous. We got to laugh at the moment in between the cut. We knew what happened off screen, but when it cut back to her, she was playing that seriously. The lawyer, it was not funny, right?
That's how
she was actually scared.
Works. Like, and also that's fan service done right. Because like everyone who's sat through all of these movies is going to be like, oh, I know what's about to happen to you. Yeah. And sure enough, you get that. I will also say John Noble, always a pleasure.
Was that the father?
Oh yeah.
The priest they go and see, John Noble. Yeah, he's the steward in Lord of the Rings, isn't it? Isn't he? He's also Walter in Fringe.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
What is that steward's name? I just want to get it right. In Return of the King.
The one who's eating all
Denethor.
I was going to say, are you scrolling through Lord of the Rings names right now? We don't have that much time in this episode.
No, I got there. He is Denethor, father of Boromir and Faramir. Anyway, he was wonderful. And again, like, not a household name for every household, but I think he is a familiar actor. And when you have somebody like that, like every time they cut back to his house, I was like, yes, whatever he is about to say is going to be interesting. He had really a good character, and the way they told the line with him was really fun, and he was eventually a part of the twist. But just the acting, it wasn't just the line or the lines that were going to come out of his mouth so I would learn more. Is that I just couldn't wait to watch him work, which I don't know, man, I love that feeling in horror movies.
He's like that all the time. A funny little bit of coincidence for me, because I did just go away on vacation. I spent the week in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah, dude.
And straight up, they go to Danvers, Massachusetts, because of course there's a fucking cult there.
Yeah.
It's like, dude. Of course. Yeah. For anyone who doesn't know, Danvers, Massachusetts is the actual site of Salem Village where the incident that started the witch trials happened.
Sounds awesome.
What the fuck is it? Do you guys think it's just the inverse of like New England and all of the lore of witchcraft? It's just the opposite, because that was where so many religious people immigrated at the beginning of this country. Like, it was religious Puritans, and of course the opposite of that was they were like, this woman can think, she's a witch.
Maybe
I mean,
or like somebody's stuck in one of those, they have one outfit and it's that weird like stuffy black dress. And sometimes you just want to rip that shit off, throw some paint on you, and go dance by a fire, and people see that and
get it, dude.
What? They go, that is not human behavior. She's a witch.
I get it. All right, let's give it up for her. All right, spoiler alert. We're going to get to
we'll get into some spoilers.
The part of this film. I think once again, I couldn't stop thinking about how good the casting and the acting was, and the way they filmed her. You weren't sure. This is, again, spoiler alert. There is a woman in here who you don't think is a regular human being, and then you get to learn more and more about her, and you realize what her origin is. She is a human, and she is cursing these people. And the way that she performed and the way they captured her was so interesting until they finally revealed that she's human. And then I still wasn't let down, because she was so well cast and did such good work that I still was scared whenever she was in the room. There was just this tiny, dainty little woman, and I was scared when she walked into the room.
And also, it's the first time in this series they've had a human antagonist as well.
Now, that being said, the only moment in this film that I think did get off for me just a little bit was when she did like travel really quickly. And I don't know if it was like she morphed in the room. You remember when she walked away and then she was behind her like immediately? That was the only thing that confused me. It was, I thought they were trying to establish at that point, okay, she is a regular human being who has cursed them. But then they did that one effect where she walks far away and then she's right behind her. And obviously a human couldn't have traveled that fast, and it happens in real time. So I couldn't tell if that was magic or something.
I gave him that because sometimes what you were seeing wasn't what you were seeing.
Yeah, they did a
right.
good job with
Yeah.
that.
So
No, you're right. It was like reflections and stuff.
Yeah, people were like hit with drugs or hit with whatever, and it like messed them up and made them see things that weren't there.
You got to get some of that shit.
Yeah, right.
This was good. This was an interesting movie because sometimes I felt like I was seeing a storyboard come to life, and then sometimes I was really like in suspense. So it was really strange combination of all. Yeah, I know John, you said it was a drama before, but there were really suspenseful moments, like when they were when Arnie, who we find out later is the killer who was demonically possessed, perhaps when this thing happened, he's looking down a keyhole and he knows he's being followed, and that was really suspenseful. Vera Farmiga, she was doing these like
I have issue with that.
Well, we'll talk about it in a second, but I like 11 in Stranger Things is just coming to my amateur mind here of like times when they black everything out in the backgrounds for suspense, so they let you know like her psyche is only focusing on these things, which happens to be supernatural, right? And whenever Vera Farmiga would do that, it was you couldn't look away. It was really suspenseful, but there were a lot of jumps and a lot of gags that weren't. The waterbed scene comes out where there's like, oh, there's a face in the waterbed, and I was like, no shit, there's a face. There's gonna be something. Like the face isn't so bad, so it's like it was almost too much. Like they were really, it was getting to the point where we're going to talk about Psycho next week, where it's all like suspense and story is the majority of the movie, not the gags that everybody remembers. The gags are so good because you sat through an hour and then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, it's like sitting through In the Air Tonight. You finally get to the drum solo. This movie, the drum solo is happening the whole time. Did they overdo it, or is it just, if I was in the theater, maybe I wouldn't have thought that? What do you guys think?
Clarify that for me one more time. Are you saying, do you think they overdid it with the pop outs in this?
Yes. So like the suspense always led to a pop out. There were very few times where the suspense led to nothing, where you're sitting there and you realize all of a sudden the music, which is very loud, which was fine. Psycho has some loud moments, but when the music fades out, it's usually, a sign. And there was always a jump out. It's okay to not have a jump out because you gotta let that be a possibility.
That is the best tension builder ever. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. But then again, I'm gonna go back to the waterbed because they're like, this bed seems weird.
Though. Like sometimes it's not.
So anyway, yeah. I'm on the brink. I don't want to hate on this movie, and I don't want to be stuffy.
No. I know what you mean, dude. And that's how I felt about A Quiet Place. And of course, I couldn't stop thinking about, because we did that last week or 2 weeks ago, and I couldn't stop thinking about that with this one, because I was a little frustrated with that with The Quiet Place, both of them. And I know what you mean, dude, because my favorite and scariest moments for me in this movie were they turned it into an iconic image. Now, whenever there was a hand that would like pull away from something, they do it at the beginning over the shower, they do it behind the tree, and I, those are scarier to me than maybe the payoff jump moment that comes right afterwards. But I do agree with Dave that they faked me out a couple times here. In a more interesting way than I think some horror movies do. But I hear you, and of course I would always agree with that. I think if you can earn a tension building sequence that doesn't give you exactly what you think is going to happen, then I think that's always more interesting.
Well, and the build up, like, I think, did you mention the girls coming out from behind the tree when Vera Farmiga is in the woods? Yeah. Vera Farmiga is in the woods and she is she has supernatural powers, so she's trying to find out supernatural. I guess that kind of sounds superhero-esque, but she has, psychic abilities of some kind, and they're kind of confusing. In this, they're different than all the other movies, by the way. That's kind of true, because this is the first time that we see her divulge into living on another like spiritual plane. So in the past, all of a sudden, she could kind of see a body, or see a hand, or see a being, or an energy. This time, she was like on a plane, and when she's in there and it's really suspenseful, and then just two girls run out and they have the ha 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 like laugh. I mean, literally, like shivers down my spine is an understatement. Like my whole body went cold for a second. It was so good.
That was a great moment.
And I not all of them did that to me, I guess is the best way to say.
All right, so let me, Dave, did you have something to say? Because I want to ask you both a question.
Oh no, my only issue was when you said about the hole in the wall where he stuck his eye up to it. And I'm like, I live in New York. I see a rat run into a hole in the wall. I'm not sticking my fucking face up to that.
Yeah,
like,
or hands. They started touching it with their hands. I was like, there's a mouse. You don't know if the mouse is feral. No. Get out of here.
I think what I would ask you both of you, do you agree with this? I felt the most what you're talking about, Jeff, in the opening. And I do feel like they consciously tried to move away from that style with the rest of the film. The more interesting fake out things started happening after the exorcism at the beginning. So I did kind of feel like in the opening, they were like, you know what, you think you know what movie this is.
Yeah.
And then it ends. And then it starts to slowly kind of turn into this mystery dramatic thing that we've been talking about. So I think I minded it less just because I thought I knew what this movie was going to feel like based on the opening, and I was wrong. Which I always enjoy when they, when they subvert something. Do you agree with that, or do you feel like it was the beginning represented the entire film in terms of style and stuff?
No, we got more Warrens after the beginning. We like jumped in. Not a lot of Warrens early on, a lot of gags. And then we started to get more Warrens. The heart attack helped. That's a weird thing to say out loud, but that's true.
No. Yeah.
Dave, what do you think?
No, I definitely think the beginning was, all right, this is a Conjuring movie. And then it settled down into, now we're going to take you a slightly different place because this is a slightly different story to what you've seen before. So a lot of people on the internet are bagging this out because it's like, oh, bring James Wan back. This guy messed it up. It's like, he didn't mess it up. He just did something. Yeah. He did something you weren't expecting. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you got to think that even somebody like Kevin Feige, somebody who's, again, God damn it, we should look him up because there's probably a producer who's in charge of this entire universe who has a lot of control over this. I like it when they're thinking about how do we change the style of these movies up just enough so that people are welcomed back. It's still extremely accessible, but then how do you end up going into a Winter Soldier and turning it on its head tone wise and making people like, oh God, I wasn't expecting that. Yet you still feel like you're in the universe. I thought they did a good job with this one. Yeah. If they had let James Wan do exactly what he wanted to do, first of all, I think he's too talented. He probably wouldn't have wanted to do a three-peat of the exact same thing that they were asking him to do the first two times.
I mean, he was specifically looking for something different.
The franchise, it works.
Away.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't even check, but he may have even been a producer on this one. He may have still had some.
He was.
Yeah. So I bet that they were very conscious of what they did, and I think the haters. I'm going to say this, and you can buzz me if you want. I like certain horror movies. We talked about this at length when we were doing our Halloween episode. I struggle with some of the community that only is obsessed with bad slasher film horror movies. I'm not saying bad in a genuine way. I'm saying like they're fun bad. I think sometimes they get frustrated when every horror movie doesn't feel that way. And I think that this might be a good example of that. I think some of the community is out there right now, and they wanted a third Conjuring movie. They wanted all the hits, and they came in and something. I don't know, something else happened. And I thought it was more interesting.
This kind of falls into like where fandom's going at the moment as well, because like Star Wars had it happen, the Avengers to some point had it happen. This has had it happen. It's like, you didn't give me what I wanted, so I hate you.
Yes, which fuck you.
Yeah,
buzz all these fucking assholes.
So what didn't I still
take a drink and chill the fuck out?
What they didn't want.
Exactly.
It actually sounds like what they wanted was what like Insidious was doing, and then The Conjuring was fun, but they needed to pivot a little bit. It can't just be ghosts in houses anymore. So they went with demonic possession and satanic cult. We haven't mentioned the fact that there's this, and I just watched The Sons of Sam, which is all about the New York basically version of what Charles Manson was doing on the West Coast.
That's
really what it was
satanic about. Craze, I remember it well.
Well, this is 81, so this is actually 70s into 80s.
Yeah, but like the 80s, they went nuts for like satanic
obsessed.
craze. It was like
fucking Reagan's, dude.
Satanists were the new enemy. If you played Dungeons and Dragons, you were a Satanist. If you did this, you were a Satanist.
Right.
It's like,
and you know what?
Whatever.
Fucking perfect that they released this now and that they made this story now, because I just listened to this great news podcast about how we're kind of living in a resurgence of this shit with QAnon. Whenever there is a massive like cultural shift, in America, we fucking lean back on these puritanical things, and people assume there's got to be demons. We've got to be eating babies. There's got to be something gross happening. Yeah. So again, just big picture wise with this franchise, I think this is a smart one to release. If these fucking assholes are that upset, I think that means they did something right.
QAnon's actually that's actually interesting, because I don't know if everybody who's involved in QAnon really understands that the people at the top of QAnon are really just trying to burn shit to the ground. And that they might think they know that, but ultimately they want a society to live in after their hopes and dreams come true in this fantasy that they've built for themselves.
Yeah.
But in this
movie, they don't realize it's going to turn into the fucking purge first.
No, that's exactly what whoever is in charge of QAnon, that's what they're doing. You can't make this shit up. Trump's going to be president. Like, and then now Trump believes it, and so he's spewing. It's like,
you cannot write this.
Not only can you not write it, but there is no.
But you can put it on the internet.
There is no utopia that can possibly come from this scenario. There's no way. So with the Satanist cult, which comes into it, and so I can see how the fans of this universe maybe wish it was either the same or completely different, but it seems like completely different. It's a huge chance to take completely different, and you can fail. And so I'm not hating on them because we're pivoting. You can see the pivot. You can see them opening up the door to the universe. But no, they did not go full satanic cult with magical powers. Because what happens if Charles Manson could actually summon demons? Now that would be fucked. That's essentially what anyone who
had that attitude towards this movie, I would say watch it again. It's on HBOMax. Watch it again.
I was just about to say
without your expectations. Like now that your expectations have been subverted, watch it again. Because the same thing happened to me with Rian Johnson doing the Star Wars film, and I hated that thing on first watch.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you that.
Like it's a solid film,
and I bet you've come around in context of the franchise too, right? Like I was going to recommend maybe take a little while and then sit down and revisit this franchise, and I bet in the context of it, you're actually going to appreciate that this does something different, kind of like how Rian Johnson's film does something different in that in these newer Star Wars
I'm not
movies.
sure if I just appreciate it more or if Rise of Skywalker came out, but
and just lowered expectations. Oh, come on. I
jest. I do want to bring us back on track.
No, you're right, dude.
I want to bring us back on track. I'd like to just briefly touch on the cinematography in this.
Yeah, please.
Do it, man. Yeah, do it.
There are some of the shots that are deliberately composed, suggesting that someone could be behind the character in the frame at any point. Like you're expecting the camera to drift and something to be there. Like they set it they guide your eye to the point where you're like, I can't see what's behind them. And your brain is registering that. And that's the sign of a well-made film. If like every time they do that, you're like, there's something behind him. Or something behind it.
And speak. I'll give you a little bit more ground to stand on, Dave. Speak technically to that, because sometimes when people hear the word cinematography, if you're not filmmaker people, you think it's just the way you use the camera and where you're pointing the camera. But a lot of times cinematographers, or every time, they are also in charge of lighting. Yes. So talk about those two things and when the marriage of those.
Okay, let's touch on when she's in the forest, because that day to night sequence, I'm pretty sure was done practically. They physically did that in camera. Yeah, you can do that with the sky panels, and you just move the sky panels above the tree frame to get the shadows to move and dim, and you actually saw like one of the light sources dim in the background of the shot. I'm pretty sure that, I don't know for sure because I can't find anything on it yet, but I'm gonna fucking look. But I'm pretty sure that day to night sequence is done practically in camera.
Did you say above the tree line?
Well, they put branches in front of it, but yeah.
Like above the trees? Like they're like in the up there?
No, they probably hang some branches below the sky panels to cut, or something to throw throw the shadows.
Yeah,
but basically you put your lights above like a layer of tree branches, and you would move those lights and dim them as you're going, and boom, you've got a day to night scene. And I'm pretty sure that's how they did it. I don't know that for sure, and I hope it is. I hope that's how they did it. Because it looked phenomenal, and it looked like it was done practically in camera.
So Vera Farmiga did Bates Hotel, and she was in Departed, and she could very easily be an A-list star right now. She loves doing these movies. She said that I love doing these movies. So not only is she working with Patrick Wilson, who's a great actor, and it's a fun day at work when you get to work together, but she gets to be around this shit. Like that's probably really fun to be like, you're doing what?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That she gets.
And again, I think she's probably very aware that we love her for being so good at this, for taking it so seriously and diving in.
Her eyes are so big when she's looking out, and oh my God.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah. And let's give it up for these guys. They were like, who knows? Let's assume they have a great relationship with her as an actor, the people in production. They wrote a really interesting dramatic role for her in this one. It wasn't just them going into the haunted house. It was about them going into this past, the relationships between her and Patrick, their past. It was good, man.
Where he's like they get to the house and they've got to go into the house, and he's like, let me go, you'll ruin your dress, and she just smiles at him and says, hold my purse.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Under she goes. Yeah. I was like, yes.
Good crawl space. That's always terrifying.
Heart attack, SL. Yeah. I also Dave. Can we also talk about? I would say the morgue sequence probably could have used a little more setup. Like they all of a sudden were like, I have an idea. What we need to do is we need to go to the morgue and get a body. I feel like there probably should have been more of conversation about that.
No, dude.
Once you're in the morgue at night with just dead bodies around, and you're in a demonic film like this, there's.
Hear me out.
Your reaction when they walk in the door is, oh no, they haven't.
They broke the thing. I was like, oh, this is already off too. Yeah, exactly.
Hear me out though. I think they had that extra, that big naked man for 2 days, and they were like, "How do we make the most of this guy?"
Yeah,
they wrote two sequences around that guy who was tearing
her
up.
Available as fuck.
It was good, dude. That was good.
So available.
Jeff, there you go. That was a good. I was trying to think. There was one more moment that I thought was a really well done, not too pimped out pop out moment when Patrick goes back and the sheet falls off his table. You know what's coming next. You know you're going to see something. You didn't know it was him or his body, but I didn't mind that one because I thought the sheet falling off was so tasteful. There wasn't, it wasn't crazy music building. They weren't moving the camera in a certain way. It was just you and Patrick realizing they're not alone and they're raising the dead now and they're stepping into some murk.
That really relies on you paying attention in the scene too, because you're like, the lights come back on and what was there isn't there, and you're like, oh fuck.
In the work, and
so I didn't mind
what
that.
was there is somewhere else.
And
where
still,
did that bother you?
No, that was great.
Did that sequence bother you?
No, because she was still Bran from the Door episode where she's still like in the different realm, and Patrick Wilson's like, I'm on my own, and she's vulnerable, and I had a heart attack. No, I thought that was good.
All right, so I think we can sum this up as this was fun and good, and I think everyone should watch it.
I think even though Dave couldn't come to my house because he was so tired from his vacation to watch this, I would say watch this with friends. I have a feeling this is all of these Conjuring movies. Part of the reason that Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are not. I mean, they're household faces, not household names, is what I would say. But it's because these movies are so rewatchable, but we let ourselves forget them because they're scary. And then we go. I've seen The Conjuring like 5 times, but I'm still surprised by it because it's like I want to be.
I have not seen The Conjuring 2. I need to go back.
Oh, you gotta do it.
Yeah.
Because after The Conjuring 1, I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm out.
I mean, Ron Livingston in the house and she sees the body on the tree. It's great. But yeah, this movie is like, I think if you watch this with friends, I bet you'll have a really, really nice reaction to it. And the suspense and the pop outs. So I think I stress ate. I wrote in my notes, my gums are hurting from stress eating chips. That's a note I took.
Nice.
Awesome guys, this is a fun conversation. This movie's fun. I hope everybody goes out and sees it. It's on HBOMax, but as always we like to say, go support the filmmakers, get out there, see it in the theater if you can. I'm sure the sound and everything, if you dare.
if you feel like you're gonna need to pause it and wait for daylight, then by all means, all right. But no, go see this in the movies. Like, they've made this for the movies, they really have.
You got to the codes are being lifted in certain cities. People are starting to date again. You got 2 good horror movies in theaters right now, Quiet Place 2 and The Conjuring Devil Made Me Do It. Go check them out.
And this director, Michael Chaves, I think we're going to see Michael Chaves. We're going to see him again. Let's get into our next section. Let's do it, guys. Let's give some people some suggestions to wrap this thing up. So what have you been watching? Give us one suggestion of the week. Dave, what have you been watching?
We got basically we ran out of things to do on the last night of our vacation because we were just so damn tired. We're like, we're not going out again, and we sat down and watched Infinite, the new film that Mark Wahlberg's come out with. It's basically
he loves a one-word title.
Yeah. It's
Shooter.
Invincible.
as least syllables as possible. It's basically there's a group of people that reincarnate. And when they reincarnate, they're able to retain the memories from their former life. So they have all the skills right back through 1,500 years ago of everything they've acquired in their life. And there's one guy that's just done with it and wants it all to end. And so he's devised this thing that'll just basically fucking melt everyone on the planet. And they're trying to stop him. Yeah. And
sounds fun.
Yeah, it's there is some phenomenal stunt work in it. I'll tell you that. Like the opening sequence, some of the car driving sequences, and just some of the stunt work in there is fucking phenomenal.
Where, is it streaming somewhere, or is it in theaters?
That one is on I think Amazon Prime. I have to look it up. I think it's on Prime.
Cool.
Nice.
Awesome. I am super fucking late to the party, but I am visiting my sister over here in the UK right now, and I'm in a fucking quarantine for days and days and days. So I was trying to start a series.
John's webcam looks like British television right now.
This is true, and I have finally sat down and I'm watching Peaky Blinders. So super late, but it's great. I'm enjoying
Shelby's.
it. I recommend it.
Nice.
If you haven't seen it, I recommend it.
I've heard good things.
I made it halfway through season 1. It wasn't for me.
Oh, I liked it. Okay.
Yeah.
Cillian Murphy, man, you never know what he's actually thinking, and I love it.
That's how I know you guys haven't activated your buzzers. I didn't get buzzed for that.
Oh,
no,
shit.
I tried to, motherfucker. I couldn't open it.
Okay. My recommendation is Hacks on HBO. I think a lot of people already know it by now because it's been out for a couple weeks. But Gene Smart, who's also in Mare, and then a newcomer, Hannah Einbinder, is really great.
Series?
Michael McDonald's series. I think 12 episodes. They've already finished season 2. They've already wrapped, but it's not coming out for a couple months. Writers were involved with Broad City, produced by Michael Schur, who did The Office and Parks and Rec and fucking everything. Like, it is tight. It is good. It's on HBO.
So it's a really serious, gritty drama.
It is. It's definitely a comedy, and it's great. It's 2 female comics, one who's a has-been and one who's an up-and-comer, and they get stuck working together. It's really funny. It's really funny. HBO Max. I've only watched things on HBO Max in the past month. This is the end of the episode, so I can ramble.
Service.
We did Singing in the Rain. We did Citizen Kane. We did The Conjuring. We did In the Heights. We did... I'm watching Hacks. I watched Mare. I just watched the Friends reunion also. I'm only watching HBO Max shows. So HBO Max is back, baby. Let's go.
HBO, baby. So good. So tasteful.
All right. So please join us midweek for our, should have seen that by now, where John, film lover, future film school graduate.
I can't believe I haven't seen that by now.
Gets to see this little movie called Psycho. Oh my God.
Movie.
Last week we did In the Heights, Singing in the Rain. Guys, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, and we will see you soon.